The following content contains explicit material. Viewer discretion is advised.
What's up, podcast listeners? This is Pete Wagner. I'm in my basement, and I'm here with my friend Greg. Greg, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, podcast land. I'm doing fine. I got my orange juice. It's going to be a good day, Pete Wagner.
All right, let's get into some stuff, unspecific stuff. You ready?
Born ready.
This isn't another fishing podcast. This is another fishing podcast.
Well, my friend, we are back. This is, if I'm not mistaken, we are on episode 4. And I got to tell you, Pete, I'm so excited about how far we've come with this podcast. You know, I feel like when we first did it, we were just kind of, that was the warm up. And now we're in the big leagues. So I feel like it was very important to have that warm up for us. But, I mean, I think I'm seeing that we're getting views as far away as Russia, the Netherlands, the UK now.
What?
I mean, we are international, baby.
That's crazy. It's the first time we worked so hard at this, we were trying to get to the same location, and I had a backpack full of gear and a mic and a mixer, and everything was just a pain in the butt. And now this seems really easy, but the downside of this is, like, when we would do it in person, I would get all sort of mentally prepared for it. But like now I just roll out of bed and I'm not really aware of what's happening yet. And we're doing a podcast already.
Yeah, and we've said this before, but we are not morning people.
No.
Just because we're fishermen doesn't mean that we're morning people.
I like sunsets when I'm fishing.
Yeah. So it's, although, we're making it work, though. I mean, it works for you, best. It works for me. I mean, Sunday morning's totally doable. So,
Works great.
I like the idea that we're getting into a routine.
Yeah.
And, it feels good to me, but I got it.
We both have studios in our house, so if you have studio in your house, why not make good use of it, right?
Exactly. No, it's kind of we're pretty fortunate in that respect. But
stupid.
What's that?
It's kind of stupid.
It's kind of what's funny is it took us this long, to just realize that maybe we could just do this through Skype.
It's like old guys with technology. By the way, I was watching somebody do a podcast the other night, and they were taking phone calls just to their cell phone, and they were just holding the speaker of the phone up to the mic. It sounded great.
I know.
So if we want to take calls, I'm just saying, we don't need to go through some rigmarole. Like, you can't even see me holding a phone on a mic off camera here,
Right.
And I can have somebody like on the phone if we want. So
yeah, for sure. Like that's like the next step, for us is like to now, be able to incorporate interviews into,
right
into this, like with people. So
I think we could try and secure some heavy metal acts, like get Chips Enough or Nikki Sixx or something, Oh, actually, Nikki Sixx is a fisherman, so we could actually use him on the show. That would be valuable. But maybe we could somehow act like we were relevant and get past some sort of promoter that allowed us to interview their client, and then they got on here and they're like, what am I doing? But even if we had them for 5 minutes, it'd be fun.
Do you have any connections in that respect where we could finagle something like that?
I have zero. I'd really have to think about it, but I'm pretty sure it's zero.
Can you don't know Sebastian Bach? Didn't you see him perform in Rochester?
Yeah, he asked me if I was ready to rock. And then I was
in a basement. Wasn't it like a basement, dude?
It was at a bar. It was at a bar in Rochester. Let me tell this story. And me and Greg are both 80s metal fans, and we kind of enjoy the ridiculousness of it and then how it collapsed so severely and how, looking back on it, how stupid it is. But Sebastian Bach played a bar in Rochester. And this is a fishing story because I went trout fishing, and then I went to the bar, and then I changed out of my waders next to his tour bus, just thinking maybe he would come outside. And then by the end of the night, there was like 20 people left. It was a really sad scene. And he's doing all these great Skid Row songs.
I was thinking about Skid Row's music too. Like, they have some amazing songs, dude. Like, I Remember You is like one of the great ballads, hair metal ballads. I mean,
Yeah.
It's like, and to think that then now he's playing to like 20 people at a bar in Rochester.
He still plays for a ton of people in Brazil, but just not in Rochester. And this bar has since been shut down. But then at one point, right before, or he came out after the encore, and he's like, "Are you ready to rock?" Which usually when they say that, you're thinking you're in a stadium, you don't need to personally respond. Right. And then he was like, "What the fuck, dude?" I was like, "What? Oh, me? You talking to me? Yes, I am ready to rock." It was the most awkward rock and roll moment I've ever been a part of, and I was pretty loaded at the time, so I realized how funny it was, And then at the end of the show, he threw the mic down. Some of his cousins were there for some reason. And at the end of the show, he threw the mic down. Before he threw it down, he goes, "This is like playing in my brother's basement." And he threw the mic down and walked off stage.
Dude, that's one of like the greatest, honestly, one of the greatest stories. Like a fall from grace story,
Yeah.
I've heard a few of them. Like, I hate it too because I'm a fan of that genre, But I had a buddy that saw. Remember the band Kicks? Remember that band Kicks from Pennsylvania? One of the first kind of like.
Eyes.
Don't close. Yeah, that's right. And that was
Eyes.
that. And for anybody, big movie buffs here, that was on the soundtrack of Dream Warriors, Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's right.
So anyway, this like Kicks, right, was this band, kind of hair metal band out of Pennsylvania, one of the very first hair metal bands, but they didn't really make it to like national, like big time notoriety like Poison and whatnot.
Right.
But they were big. They were big regionally. My buddy went to see them like years and years later after their heyday in the East Coast, and he's like, they're playing at like a county fair or something, right? And he's doing his like signature like dance, blow my fuse. One of their songs was "Blow My Fuse." So everything was very sexually suggestive, like typical hair metal,
As they all were.
So he's up there and he's sashaying around him, "Blow my fuse," and all of a sudden this beer bottle gets chucked on stage and knocks him in the head, knocks him flat ass out. Out. And it was like, I don't know. I just thought to myself, what a fall from grace. You're up there, and then some jerk throws a beer bottle and hits you in the head, and you're.
If I may tell one more fall from grace story.
Yes, of course. We
opened up for Warrant at the Iron Horse. The Iron Horse is like a famous metal band bar. And this is Warrant after the collapse, if you will. After the tsunami of Pearl Jam had swept through the. So, and Janie Lane is, he's not around anymore. He died in a Super 8 motel, the singer for Warrant. But at the time, he was still married to Bobby Brown, and Bobby Brown, you remember Bobby Brown was a cherry pie girl,
stunning.
And at this point, she's like, I got to get out of this situation already. She's going around playing cruddy bars and everything.
She's ready. She's trying to pull the ripcord.
Yeah, exactly. So we end up in the back room with these guys the night before, and we're playing pool, and it's like me and my brother Wags versus Janie Lane and their keyboard player Dave, who I later worked with at a guitar store in Dallas. And I had like the best pool moment of my life. Like Janie wasn't even talking to me, and Bobby was there with him. So it was Bobby. Is that her name? Bobby anyway.
Brown.
Was that right?
Yes, dude.
I think it is
bizarre, but yes, Bobby Brown. Okay. Yeah.
And so I run like 8 balls in a row and finish the game. Like the game starts out with like 4 or 5 bad shots, them, us, them, us, them, us. And then I go on a run and I look like a shark, I just clear the table. And so Bobby's standing there with Janie, and Janie like throws a stick down, like, this guy's a huckster, you could tell he was ticked off. And then the keyboard player had to come, and I was so happy to be there with those guys because I love Warrant. And the keyboard player comes over and he's like, "Hey, don't worry about it," like he was trying to rub my back and tell me everything was going to be.
This happens a lot.
So on the way out, we we saw his leather jacket hanging. He was just a jerk, so we saw his leather jacket hanging on a hanger on the way out the door, the cherry pie leather jacket, and then we threw it in the corner.
Oh, no. Oh, no, dude.
It was one of the funniest nights of my life, though, because you could tell Bobby was sitting there going, really? Are we doing this over a pool game and, in this crappy, bar, and you guys have been playing arenas for the last 5 years? And
I'll tell you, man, Fame is fame's a bad deal, dude.
She just put out a book too, which I'm kind of desperate to read. I wonder if I'm in it. Maybe I made it. Maybe she has an embarrassing pool.
Maybe that was the beginning of the end. That's when maybe that whole experience was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
They didn't last long after that, I'm pretty sure. So.
You were the catalyst, man.
Can we segue that into fishing somehow? Any of that?
Yeah, so this is how I'm going to do it, I guess. This is going to be the segue. Well, you humiliated Janie Lane that night.
Okay.
That night you were a pool god, and if you're anything like me, there's times when, and it's typically is if I've had a certain amount of alcohol, but all of a sudden I become very good at pool.
You quit thinking.
Whereas before I was terrible.
Right.
And it sounds like you had that experience where it's just like this. It's like touched by God all of a sudden, and the most perfect time to be a pool god.
And I'm sure it was Bobby Brown inspired to some extent.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
because we're men. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. I get it, dude.
I was never that good at pool again.
No, I mean, it's a great story. It's one of my favorite stories. I've heard this many times. I never tire of hearing it.
I don't either. And I've told it a lot.
But we're going to bring you back down to earth here a little bit now, Pete, because, life is humbling and
you got to relax.
So we had on the last podcast we did together, we had one of our topics was, and I titled it, listen, it's not easy to be in the, what do you call what we're doing? The internet entertainment platform business. I don't even know what this is that we're doing. We have a show. We have shows that we put out to the internet. We have stuff that we find brilliant and that we can't believe that we don't have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but we do it because we know this is art that we need out in the world.
Yeah. Eventually the world will find it. We might be gone, but
so I can't even. Where in the world am I going with this, dude? I'm going to admit to the listeners right now, I'm hungover.
Well, you were trying to find a segue from 80s hair metal to fishing, but then you got off course.
Okay, so let me get back to it. I think I remember what kind of segue I was trying to do now.
Okay.
So we basically we did a topic on the last podcast we did together about Shimano reels.
Right. I was complaining about one specific ultralight reel I use for trout fishing.
Right. So both
and it lit the internet on fire.
You're right. Exactly. That's how news is. Everything's exaggerated. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to make this into a super big deal right now.
Yeah, and before we get into this, I want to point out that one of my least favorite parts about the internet is how people are so willfully willing to insult each other on the internet.
I know.
Like, I'm not one of those people that would ever get on the internet, and then if I didn't like something, I would just move on. But I certainly wouldn't stop and leave a horrible comment. It's shocking, like, how the world operates now.
Are you saying
at the same time, it doesn't bother me, especially if it gives us something to talk about on our next podcast.
Right. So here's what has become my policy, that I only, if I receive a negative comment, then I go both barrels. If there isn't
I saw the both barrels. I don't know which way you're going through first, but I saw your both barrel fishing challenge.
Good. You did see it. I was like, I think there's a great but to me, this is how demented I am. I don't really mean it. I'm doing it more as like, how can I and my justification for it is that he did it first.
Right. So this was based.
So I go, what? Bam!
Last week you had a podcast and you had a guest on. What was his name from Walleye?
Oh, from fish. Yeah, from Ice Fishing Minnesota.
Okay. It was Andy.
Andy Peterson.
You're right. Good guy. I watched a little bit of it. So I was gone. So I just thought for the week, and I'm like, I want to see how Greg tries to pull off a podcast without me, because it's like you lose like 80% of the talent, but you're still going forward. And then I see that you're talking about ice fishing and people keeping too many fish, just like over harvesting. And what is that guy's comment? He says something to the effect of, I don't know where you're fishing, or what I'm talking. What was his comment that triggered you? It was a Facebook comment that some guy.
No, it was. So basically, he was saying that. So he was saying that basically. I'm sorry, I get a certain jolt out of this. It's entertainment to me for a certain.
I was laughing so hard when I saw it, because I don't even ever get on Facebook, and I was like, oh, I want to see if he's doing a podcast, and it looked good, and I listened to a bunch. It sounded great, and the idea was great too. But
you're saying I'm a hypocrite. I know where you're going. Yes, I am.
No, I'm not.
So what? But what happened is so he this guy, he basically said, it sounds like these guys are just complaining because they're complaining because they can't find fish themselves. They think there's no fish around. Right. They think everybody's keeping fish.
Just a solid
They just don't know how to catch fish. It seems like they don't. And then he goes, ha, ha, ha. And I'm like, I'm firing both barrels at him. Here it goes. Boom, boom.
And you literally
and dude, he whimpered off. The dude whimpered off. It's like and then a lot of them go, "Whoa! I wasn't because so many people just like cower and I'm like, dude, no. I basically look at it like I'm troll hunting. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to blast those motherfuckers.
But you challenged him basically to like a fight.
Don't even know the guy. Don't even know
into the back alley of a bar, but your fight was like breakdancing, but it wasn't breakdancing, it was fishing.
That's exactly right. Hey, dude, it was
time.
Yes,
you fish.
I'm glad you see the art in that comment. Like, you get it. It was 80s. It was a total like Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo or Karate Kid. It was all of that, dude. It wasn't. I don't really, I did it more. I knew that you would probably see the comment. I knew that there's people that would know, and they get a kind of charge out of it.
I think we should go through with it. I mean, I think we should do the whole thing. I could be the ringmaster. You guys, it'd be like the bell rings, and then you two are just sitting there ice fishing like idiots, like we all look like when we're ice fishing.
Here's what I was there was a part of me hoping he would go, "You're on." And then we would make a video out of it. And then I was saying, and then I started thinking, well, I had to actually look at the very real possibility that he would kick my ass.
Right.
So I'm like, how do I spin that so I still look good for our show if that happens?
Is there anything more manly than catching, like a 10-inch sunfish and putting it in somebody's face?
It's just, I mean, I know my wife saw the comment and she just must have been like, this guy, like, what is he doing? Just like you did. Just like Luke Henches from Northwoods Angling did. He goes, Greg's at it again.
Luke gets it. I was literally on the toilet on vacation laughing.
Good. That makes, honestly, I got to tell you, like, I think that how you think of me is like, it kind of balances between like, oh my God, you utter idiot, but also like, oh, you're the greatest. It's like, I feel like you utter idiot. Oh, you're the greatest. We have so much fun. Oh, you're such an idiot. What are you saying now? You need to calm down and worry about too much. It's like, it's just constantly like a teeter-totter with you.
It's like a rocking boat. It's like a rocking boat on Mille Lacs and 4-footers. So that's part of the joy with you, It's like you every now and again you do something. We're like, what's he doing? And then it gets better over time,
Like that one time, I thought it would be a good idea to do a live stream where if I didn't catch a fish,
oh, that's right,
I'd have to eat a night crawler. This was in my like Barnum and Bailey days when I was trying to promote what we were doing. Like that was the big Barnum and Bailey promoter.
Eat a night crawler challenge or something crazy.
It's just so stupid.
And you caught a fish though. You didn't have to eat.
I didn't have to eat a night crawler, but I think to myself, dude, how old am I, man? How old am I? I'm in my mid 40s. Like
that's another one where your wife is like, "Oh, so you were out doing the night crawler challenge?"
Right, exactly. But God love her, she puts up with a lot. I'll tell you. Let's get right into it here. I know we have limited time. Everybody's
Too late
busy,
for that.
so what's that?
Too late for that.
Right. I know. What are we like? Almost 30 minutes? No, okay, 20 minutes in. We're okay. So it was funny. We did that. It like probably our most, I would say, unliked or disliked video we've ever done, Pete, was the podcast where we talked about Shimano sucking. And this is why I was going off on a tangent. I had to make a thumbnail, and it said Shimano sucked. They had like Shimano reels, and it said Shimano sucks. And your thumbnail, you really wanted to catch people's attention. And I'm sure we got new eyes on us from that. And because I'm seeing comments that are like, they've got to be just people randomly have seen the video and see the.
Yeah. And by the way, it was like an hour and a half long podcast, and we maybe spent 5 minutes on this little Shimano reel of mine that isn't working right.
Right. But it got people worked up. It's like people have disliked it more than they've liked the video. And so, and it didn't go very well on social media either, on Facebook, when I promoted that video, right? Right. And so you kind of got lambasted. And when I when I was listening back, I go, people are going to give him crap on this. And I know that it's not like you don't know, it's you have a style when you cast, when you stream, you just reel. You start reeling. Like we just needed to describe that better because you have immediate.
I'm holding my ground too, by the way.
And I think you probably should. You need to describe why you do that, because we didn't, and it left open a big area where people could criticize you. So let's get into it.
I think that's a good thing, right? That people can criticize me.
Yeah, I gotta find where I've got so much stuff to look through here. There's so much great.
Are you looking on YouTube or Facebook?
No, I've got it up on. Oh goodness, where are we at here? I definitely got to get better at. Here's where it is. My bad. I remember now what I was going to do. So let's put this there. We'll bring up the first. I gotta get off my mic here. Bring up the first one here. This is our first comment here, Pete, and it says, "This is." Do you think I should say people's names here? On our podcast?
Probably not. I mean, you can go look at it if you want to, but what's the difference? I don't need their name set. I mean, these people
the graphic's going to show their name.
Negative they are to me.
But the graphic over your head right now, Pete, is going to show their name. But whatever. I think it's since they. I mean, isn't it kind of public domain? Don't you think? Since they, I
mean, it's your call, Greg. They're all my friends, so I don't mind saying their names.
Okay, so this gentleman says, this is a comment on their video about Shimano sucking. He says, I suppose a nice reel shouldn't have that issue, but really? Who closes the bail like that? I hope he's not one of these people. And then it shows a guy reeling with the spinning reel up above the rod.
Right, well, the picture I've seen before, the old Johnson reel. Funny guy. That was actually a pretty gentle comment, though.
And then they get progressively worse. This gentleman here says, when I was in high school, I constantly fished little creeks for trout. With whatever cheap reel I got at Kmart, never had the trouble he's talking about. Sounds like he just needs to work on his skills a bit. Try closing the bail by hand, too. It pretty much eliminates line twists and wid knots. So not bad at 2. Again, a little bit.
It feels like we're sliding into the dark web, but okay.
Oh, it gets much darker. Unpopular opinion. Too lazy or less experienced anglers learn how to manually. He's saying unpopular opinion. Too lazy or less experienced anglers learn how to manually flip your spinning reel bail after each cast. watch 2 minutes of this load of crap to only hear a user error problem.
I still disagree with that comment.
And it's like these people are merciless.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm doing it manually. That's what I'm mad about.
This guy is reeling with the bait still in the air? I think he needs some basic lessons in casting. I use Shimano spinning and casting. The new Vanford. Wasn't that like the butler in one of those like 80s sitcoms? Vanford? Maybe not.
That's a Shimano reel, the Vanford?
The Vanford. It sounds like royalty.
By the way, I got my Daiwa Fuego, and it's super light, and it feels really good.
We'll get to that because I've heard a lot of good stuff about Daiwas through this experience. Anyway, so he says I've had no issues with his Shimanos. This gentleman says.
And I think maybe what donates to my issue is the temperature at which I'm using it. Maybe when you're out there in the cold, maybe there's a lubrication issue also.
This guy says, "Dude throws spinner baits with a spinning reel." Enough said.
Baits.
So I posted this on a bass fishing site, and they don't know what inline spinners are. So I had to, but first I threw you under the bus.
Okay.
I said to him, I responded to this gentleman. I said, "You make a valid point." And then I got to thinking, wait a minute, no. He's thinking that he's throwing. I said, actually, then I defended you. Pete's referring to inline spinners in this video, but I have seen him throw spinner baits on spinning reels. So I still kind of kept you under the.
There's a delicate touch with spinner baits and spinning reels.
Yeah.
And by the way,
I'm trying to find a particular comment. This is the last comment, but I just thought it was funny.
I was lake trout fishing with a bait casting reel through the ice, by the way.
Right on.
Which is a common thing, apparently, and it worked great.
This gentleman here says, "It's not the reel, it's the user. I absolutely love my Shimanos. Their quality is amazing compared to the hordes of other crap that's being put on store shelves. If you're not closing the bail by hand before you start retrieving, you're asking for problems. And the fact that he doesn't know this made me stop the video." And that just stabs me in the heart when I hear comments like that. I take this stuff very personally.
By the way, I've got maybe 15 Shimano reels, so I'm an obvious Shimano fan. More than that. I bet I have more than 15 Shimano reels. Do you remember the first Shimano reel we ever used? It had the drag on the back and the quick trigger up top.
It was awesome.
They still have it. It's like $20.
That is when those reels were quality throughout the price range. Their entire price range was quality. I mean, and
they're still pretty good. They're still in the top 3, if you ask me. But they're expensive, so you expect a lot.
But this is how I responded to this gentleman. I'm going to have an intervention for my friend. And then he responds, "We're all here because we care about you, and we don't want you to be seen with you on the lake." Did you get that? We're all here because we care about you, and we don't want to be seen with you on the lake.
Right. Nice. So that's actually funny. I'll forgive any line that's funny.
I thought it was pretty funny. So do you want to defend yourself here? Now defend yourself, because I think people need to understand more of how you fish these streams.
What do I feel? We're going further down the rabbit hole, right? All right, I'll try this again, but it's too early in the morning. So yes, and this is the only type of fishing where I use my reel handle to flip my bail, because it's a bang-bang situation. So you're standing in a creek. There's a lot of times you're throwing into the quickest, fastest rapids in the stream or river, and there's not a lot of water. And when that spinner is coming down, if it's not moving towards you before it hits the water, it gets embedded under a rock in the first half a second. And these are generally the best spots to catch trout. And one wasted cast means you have to walk through the hole and scare every fish that was sitting there. So what I've adapted to over time with my evolutionary methods is I'm casting a spinnerbait, and I've been doing this my whole life.
An inline's not a spinnerbait.
Sorry, my spinner, MEP spinner, little MEP spinner. And I've been doing this my whole life with these reels. And right before the spinner hits the water, I'm cranking the handle so the spinner is actually coming at me in like 6 inches before it hits water. It's almost an identical. It almost happens at the same time. The spinner starts moving at me as it's hitting the water, as not to catch a rock. And a lot of times those fish hit on the very first, as it drops and it moves that first foot, that's usually when you get a fish. So what happens when you have to manually do that is if you throw the lure out there, if you flip the reel, let's say, because you need an extra second now because you're flipping the bail over and then you're going back to the handle. When it gets about a couple of feet over the water, you have to manually flip the bail. And what it does, it changes the trajectory of the spinner. And instead of it coming down in an arch, which I can time it perfectly when it hits the water, now it stops and it shoots straight down in the last 6 inches, and it gets you snagged more than it doesn't. So I don't know if there's a good way to explain what the problem is here, but I need a bail that manually flips. It's like a very specific situation in fishing that you would never see in any other type of fishing. I don't think this would ever come up with any lake fishing for sure. Yeah. It's only in swift streams and it's only in rapids. If it's in a hole, it's not a big deal. But it's a very specific thing, and I don't know if there's a better way to explain it. But
no, that makes sense. You know,
expecting my bail to flip over when I start cranking on my reel, that's not asking a lot for me.
Yeah.
And what it does is it does it halfway. So when the spool is spinning, the bail is looping around it, you know, but it's pointed out. It's not sitting either direction. It's in that middle spot, you know?
Right.
So it's obviously just not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So
right.
Internet, if you want to hate me, if you want to take this out on the streams, I will take this on the stream. You want to go, I will catch some trout and you won't. You'll be catching rocks. Do you hear?
That's it, dude. You got it, man.
Thank you, everybody. Now I'm finally more.
It's like, dude, that felt like very Rocky-ish, man. Like,
yeah. Thank you. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, I love it. I'm just a product of, you know, my '80s upbringing, you know.
Right.
And so are you. I love it. We know how to call people out for a street brawl.
Have you Cobra Kai'd yet?
No, I got to. I know.
Do it. It'll get you ready. It'll get you ready for internet battles.
I got to thinking, you know, I don't know that I want to be calling people out on the internet anymore, because if I see them at like the bait shop, like I don't need any of that.
They'll lash you with their stringer. I was going to go fill the stringer with 30 crappie and you wrecked my day.
Yeah. Oh, you're here? Oh, motherfucker, you're here?
Let's do this.
It's like the bait shop always used to be like a sanctuary for me, you know?
Everyone
not anymore. You walk in and it's like, you said, what'd you say about me?
He's got like quarter-ounce jigs.
Oh, you're here right now? Let's do this right here by the fathead minnows.
Slamming their bait bucket cover on your head. Throwing you out the door. It's where we've come to. It's the way the world works now.
So, okay, moving on here.
I can't move on.
You can't? Is it? Okay, let's keep listening.
No, I'm just kidding.
I think, well, there's no doubt. What's great is we're actually, of the videos that we put out this month, that video where we talk bad about Shimano is really the most viewed. So it's like...
I can already see the thumbnail for this video. It's like, Pete shreds Shimano naysayers, or, you know, like, now I'm just shredding other people on the internet, and you'll have some freeze frame of me like, ugh,
oh yeah, that's it. Just hold your face like that. Perfect, got it. Well, use that for the thumbnail.
Pete rages against Shimano comments.
Yeah. No, it's we've trying to make it as much like a National Enquirer, you know, photo. You know, like splashy headlines and...
Yeah, I took that reel, by the way, and I used it ice fishing all week. And I put 4-pound regular, not ice fishing trilene on it. Put regular trilene on all 6 of my Shimano reels I took ice fishing. I guess I had a couple of braids. Worked great. The fishing line works great. Regular trilene. This is a scoop right now.
Are you kidding me right now?
Works great. What's that?
Are you this sounds like a conspiracy. What? Let me see if I understand this correctly.
Yes.
You're telling me that the line you used regular fishing line, monofilament fishing line for ice fishing.
I used the Red Box Trilene 4 and 6 pounders.
XL? Trilene XL?
What makes it an XL?
It's more limp. It's
I think so.
a limper. It's like better for spinning reels.
I think so. And it didn't
XT is the stronger stuff, better for bait casters.
It didn't seem to have a lot of stretch. It didn't coil up funky. I was fishing spoons with a lot of twist, as you're sitting there bobbing spoons around, you get a lot of twists. It was just like, it was great.
It worked great. So the scoop here, let me just so I understand is, so you're saying that the scoop here is that there's a conspiracy. So I'm so worried, dude. This tooth is so out of control. But so I have a missing tooth. Did you hear my dog right there?
Yeah. Not for long. You don't have a missing tooth.
Well, so yeah, Wednesday I'm getting a new tooth. So I just see myself in this shot, and every time I smile that way, it's just like this gaping hole in my mouth. And so I'm so excited. I'm gonna have a fake tooth soon. Anyway. What were we talking about?
We're talking about what was the new drama. That I'm saying that ice fishing line is a conspiracy.
Oh, right. So that's right. So here's the big point here. You're saying all that packaging, ice line, zero, all that.
75 yards on a spool.
My animals are going. My animals are going crazy.
I get it.
So. I think you got something there. I think it would not surprise me at all if most of it looks like my wife is now entered. She's on the phone. We're real here. We
Jessica.
want stuff. Yeah, Jessica is now, she's watching. I have a lighting set up here. She's watching the lights. And now Cinnamon is my miniature dachshund who has us absolutely wrapped around her paw. Now my wife is making her way around the obstacle course of lights and light stands and sound blankets, and there she goes with our miniature dachshund that is having a bowel movement in progress.
Bravo.
In progress. But anyway.
And I didn't mean to get us off course here, but I wanted to remind myself to bring that up, that I took every single reel I had. And I don't understand why ice line, first off, is blue. If somebody wants to sell me on that one, even the braid is blue. Is that because of the diffusion of light through the ice somehow hides?
Yeah, because blue is ice cold.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing is they come in, spools of like 75 yards. I've got, Trilene like 1,000-yard spools sitting around. So I'm like, well, what am I fighting these little spools for?
Right
Put
on.
Trilene on everything.
I know. I love Trilene.
Couple of, like Suffolk braids I put on a couple of reels.
God, I had a bad experience with that Suffolk mono. I didn't
use
tell you that?
No.
That was a while back. We don't need to get into it, but I guess.
But anyway.
Yeah, no. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if there's a reason to use ice line. And please leave comments that just bring me to my knees if I'm incorrect there. Maybe I'm missing something. But so far, I had great success catching 6 or 7 types of fish in different conditions. I was fishing in below zero temperatures, but the water's always 33, 34. I don't know. What am I missing here? It's the same temp as when I'm, spinner fishing for trout in the wintertime. So I don't know. What do you think on this one?
I don't know, but you went digital there for a little bit. You became Digital Pete. You were like Max Headroom.
Right.
For a little bit there. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. He kind of predicted that, didn't he? Max Headroom was like way ahead of his time. Think about that.
You get it? Ahead?
Yeah, and we all are. We all are like heads in rooms now. Seriously, it's kind of creepy when you think about it. And he's got that weird background he can have in the back, and now you're like Digital Pete. You break up and you're just like Max Headroom.
Yeah.
Yes. That's it. You are Max Headroom. We are, come on. How does no one see that? But anyway, gosh, I can't remember. No, as far as the line thing, I think it could be I think most of it is marketing. And especially the color blue. That's just complete marketing.
Or if there's somebody out there that knows of a specific line, because lines, you wade into it even further. You have a hard time figuring out what's what,
Right.
And I'm not a kind of guy that likes to go super high end of my lines, because it's almost like reels. You don't notice a lot of difference between the $100 to $200 reel. In the lines, it's the same deal. Is there a line that you'd love for ice fishing that you can get in good quantities that you're not, because every year you kind of want to freshen up that line, even more so than freshwater fishing, it seems like, because they just get coiled up. And especially for ice fishing, especially if you're fishing light, there's nothing worse than fighting a coiled up line when you got this light little jig on there that you can't even stretch your line out with,
Yeah, I mean, I would say what I've, I love fluorocarbon on spinning reels, and it's interesting because not a lot of people just have straight. I'm looking at my hair right now on this camera. I got to get a haircut, y'all. I'm 45 years old. It is out of control here, dude. What am I doing?
Give myself a haircut.
I need to get on that program. But anyway,
great.
Golly, what did I start this rant? I got to stay on the same.
I know. I threw you off with the line, but you were leading somewhere to the next.
There was something else I was going to talk about, but whatever. Golly, unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a long night last night, wasn't it?
It was, man.
Have a sip of orange juice.
Yeah, thank you. I'll do that right now.
There you go.
You're gonna just. I'll cut to your shot here, Pete.
All right. And Greg is now sipping orange juice. Might jumpstart his brain a little bit. We'll wait and see what happens. It looks like there's a little more sparkle in his eye. Seems like he's...
Okay, here we go. Moving on.
It's that same dead look in his face, but
boy.
Let's continue.
Here we go. All right, so remember we had the furry fish topic? That was another interesting... But so got some explanations for what's going on there. I'm going to bring this picture up here. Where are you? Furry fish.
It was a furry sunfish, right?
Furry sunfish. It's up right now on the video. So this creature had this, it looks like a pumpkin seed, I'd say. Some kind of maybe a hybrid sunfish. It had a growth coming out of it. Looked very much like fur coming out of this wound on the end of this, kind of towards the back end of the dorsal of this fish.
Early in the morning.
What's that?
It's early in the morning. I'm going to start heaving. Go ahead.
Sorry. So it turns out what that is, and I got to bring up, where are you? That. Turns out what that is I've heard a few things. So we actually had one of our viewers say it's a thing called a cotton wool disease.
Ew.
Yeah, cotton wool disease is the name of it. And so you'll
perfect name.
Aquarists, will see it in their freshwater fish. It's a freshwater fish disease,
Yeah.
So they'll see it on fish, and I think it's typically like in clean water, it's like white, but who knows where that pumpkin seed came out of, so it's like kind of brownish.
Right.
But supposedly, if you look up cotton wool disease, it's actually not a fungus. It's actually a bacteria, I think. But you might check that out. That's what I thought it was. But then on Target Walleye, supposedly a biologist with some Fish and Game or Parks and Game and Parks Commission in some state, I guess that's Nebraska, says it's a fungal infection. Those are common secondary infections. Looks like that bluegill had an injury and then it became infected with a fungus. Fungal infections on fish are most common in cold water. Likely as the fish heals, it will just go away, but it does look disgusting, he says.
So he's got a chance of making it that little pumpkin seed, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So
I wish we could get a pumpkin seed update in like 2 weeks. Now we're all wondering.
Yeah, I wish that pumpkin seed had a YouTube channel like that,
Sassy Sunfish,
a daily vlog.
Remember my Sassy Sunfish
can you
Twitter
bring
account?
Sassy Sunfish back?
I would just troll bass fishermen as a sunfish. Actually, I wasn't trolling. I was supportive of bass fishermen that were catching bass because they were my mortal enemies.
So good. I wish you'd bring that back.
Some guys thought it was funny, and most guys were like, "I don't understand what's happening right now."
You're way over their head.
Yes.
Listen, there's plenty of smart bass fishermen, and there's plenty of very
right.
not smart bass fishermen.
I thought it was a friendly way to be a troll, because I was attacking bass.
No, exactly. It was like you were super nice about it. Like if you're kind of like making fun of people or whatever,
I was making fun of bass. So like some people thought it was funny, but then some people were like, "You can't be making fun of bass." And then I'd be like, "I'm a sunfish and I'm sassy, so I talk about this stuff."
Right. It was the nicest way to troll. It's almost so nice it's not trolling, but it's still kind of trolling.
I would post like favorite substrates to spawn on, multiple choice, and I would get no answer.
Dude, I gotta tell you, that is so brilliant.
I would go back and read my feed, and I would be laughing so hard. I'd be like, nobody is seeing any of this. This is the stupidest idea.
The problem is, and I can speak from experience. So when we had the, another fishing show, Twitter, and then now with Angling Uploaded Twitter, dude, Twitter, like fishing Twitter is dead. It's like not even there. It's not even a real thing. It's not even, I mean, there's no reason to have anything to do with Twitter and fishing.
It's weird.
You know, and weird. So your stuff was great. I remember that. And I'm like, it's so sad because this so needs an audience.
Right.
It so needs an audience because it was legitimately really, really funny. But there's no one there to laugh at it.
I think for my new what do they call the little icon that you use for your face on Twitter? Whatever. I sound like an old guy right now, but I'm just early. But I'm going to use, instead of that cartoon sunfish, I'm going to use the furry sunfish from here on out. So then when people click on my icon, they get a close-up shot of that. They're like, "Oh, geez, that sassy sunfish has got some serious bacterial infections."
It was like how you do it is it's like a part of the sassy sunfish's story that had that one time when it had the cotton wool disease.
Right,
it's part of its story.
Yeah. There was a pike involved, and that's what got me sassy. Like I was like Nemo, I'm like, this pond is beautiful, and then this pike came over and was like, nah, and just took a chunk out of my body, and then I became sassy.
Dude, you've got, honest to God, you've got the makings of such a great children's book there. I mean, you can have a whole community. Like, what's the pike? What's his name?
Right. Yeah, there's plenty of good ones there. The Doomsday Pike, but
I mean, you could pitch it to like DNR too, like help promote get young kids in the fishing. You can have sassy sunfish, the whole family, like trying to get the whole fish
pesky pike.
Yeah, I love it. So
anyway, I'm getting you off course again. I'm sorry.
No, I think that we covered that topic very well. So. Good. In more depressing news, so the 2021 Northwest Sports Show was that was scheduled for March 25th through the 28th has been canceled.
Where did they hold that at?
That was in Minneapolis.
Why did they call it the Northwest?
I don't know. I think maybe because was in Northwest Minneapolis.
I don't know. Isn't it at the convention center or something?
It's like goes back to like when they first started. There's some. Yeah. No, speaking of origin stories,
that was always like the first kind of sign of spring.
Right.
On the corner.
Exactly. And like, so dude, sports shows are like a thing of the past now. So they're canceling that. I'm like, there wasn't an ice show this year. And so I'm like,
they're still holding like a wedding. They're still holding one of those shows where they show wedding dresses up there. I don't know why fishing gets the shaft.
Really?
Like the bridal show. Yeah, I saw there's a billboard for it on my way to work.
What?
What's the deal?
Listen, here, come on. People got to get their priorities straight. Fishing's way more important than marriage.
The bridal show is
I'm
probably
just kidding.
A little smaller.
Or am I? No, so I like when. So do you think? Or do you think that like the stuff will be back online like in a year? Like, will we have sports shows in a year?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am a firm believer that we'll be completely back to normal a year from now.
Okay, that's good.
COVID's just a thing we deal with, and it'll still be around in smaller numbers, and it'll still make headlines, even though it's not as big of a deal.
Do you think people will still be wearing masks at that time?
I think it's going to be something people do. It's a weird thing. Like in Asia, people used to wear masks for just regular flu season because they were looking out for their elderly population. They treat their elders with a crazy amount of respect out there.
Yeah, what a
That's
crazy
kind of a cool
concept.
thing. The other weird thing right now is that there's no regular flu around. Like we're in the peak of the regular flu right now, and doctors are like, we're not seeing any cases of the flu because people are wearing masks and washing their hands.
Yeah, but see that argument has a problem though.
Well, I'm not making an argument. I'm just saying that's what's happening.
Well, so if that were the case, why wouldn't the COVID numbers be coming down? Why are the COVID numbers peaking if masks and washing hands it works for the flu? Why isn't it working for COVID?
Because COVID's, I'm not a doctor, but I have relatives in the medical field, is a way more contagious version of the flu. But I see your point.
But it's like, I looked at the numbers, the state of Minnesota numbers. There's no numbers. Like it's like what? Like it's so low, dude, that it's like it doesn't make. It's too low. Is my point.
You mean the regular flu?
The regular flu. The numbers. Look at the state of Minnesota flu numbers, and it's just like flat.
That's
like
weird.
It's bizarre, dude.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. It's probably tied in with like ice fishing lines.
God bless you. Exactly. That's all I'm saying. That's what I was trying to get around to. I was trying to circle back. I love that. That's a corporate term. Let's circle back on that a little late. Let's circle back, and then at the end of the day, we're going to circle back and move on to another topic.
Right.
Here we go.
Next issue.
Okay, so
but yeah, I think things will be back to normal, but there'll be some mask wearing in specific public places, but who knows?
So I like to, when I'm preparing for these podcasts, I just make a little notepad here.
Smart.
I just and so if you hear that in the audio podcast, you hear some of that rustling of. One thing too, I got to get I've noticed I can hear when I put my hands on the table. I got to get a stand for this mic.
Oh yeah. Oh, you got the countertop mic.
Yeah. But you hear, you can hear when I'm rustling or I'm moving, my hands on the table, it like goes through the mic stand, but
nobody cares. If it blocks out your voice, they probably appreciate it.
So I heard that. I'm not, I hear all this stuff. So we're going to bring up, we talked about electric outboards not that long ago. Remember that, Pete?
Yep.
And the corporate owner of Bass Cat Boats is investing more in electric boats. So Bass Cat's a big bass boat maker, sponsors Major League Fishing events, sponsors a lot of events,
Bass Cat.
Bass Cat's funny name. Really funny name. Really kind of ridiculous. But they've been around forever.
They're a Southern brand, apparently.
Yeah, they're out of Arkansas. Right. But their parent company is like investing in this electric boats. And so this is from Fishing Wire, fishingwire.com. Electric boat company expands capacity. And if I bring this one up, gosh, this is kind of a... Ingenuity Electric is increasing the capacity. I got to watch what I'm doing with this microphone. Ingenuity Electric is increasing its capacity to build electric boats as part of parent company Correct Craft. Its investment in 300,000 square feet of manufacturing space near its headquarters in Orlando. So Correct Craft, I believe, is the owner of Bass Cat. These companies can get so big that it's hard to...
Yeah.
But my point in this is seeing, this Fishing Wire is kind of like the news of the fishing industry. And to see that there's these companies that are investing these, even within fishing boat manufacturers, even starting to invest in this idea of electric outboards, electric boats. And I think this is where it's going. I think a ton of innovation in that area is going to happen in this decade. And
For
so
sure.
I would love to see if, if this Ingenuity Electric is like if it's like a public company, I would be like, I will think about investing in that.
Possibly. It still feels like it's a little ways off.
Yeah.
Those things sort of take a little bit of time to. I mean, some dudes just like their boat to sound like a Harley anyway. You're never going to get past that.
Well, I mean, my boat starts like a Harley, I get
Yeah.
that. And so but ultimately, I really actually like the idea of an electric, that I think I like the ease of it. Just the idea that you don't have to worry about gas. There's much less maintenance to it.
I thought that when I bought an electric chainsaw, when I lived in the country, I had a lot of wood to cut.
I understand, man. You got to cut wood.
My farmer neighbor, he was a funny guy. He heard me using it, and then he yells from like an acre over, "What is that?" And I'm like, "It's an electric chainsaw." And you could just see him like in the distance shaking his head, like just emasculating me, for using an electric chainsaw.
Right. Yep.
And it worked good too, but I was, it sounded lame. It would just be like, it wasn't like,
Well, we'll evolve past that nonsense.
I think so. But I think it's not a bad investment. It'd almost be interesting to have somebody from the company on to see what they have to say about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. That would be very interesting. I mean, there's a Pure Watercraft out of Washington State, developing a higher horsepower electric outboard. It's just going that way. So I'm not here to give any investment advice. I'm not a professional, but I will say that I will be looking heavily into those investments. Like what's crazy is in my own retirement, my best, there's different like stocks and bonds they arrange, and and I can't remember what they call that. Like just like the little investment portfolios, packets,
like mutual funds.
Yeah. So I have I made sure that I got into this clean energy one, right? Dude, this 2020, it was my best performing stocks.
Right. No,
So-
it seems like a good route to go. It's just I have a ton of questions about like how many batteries it takes, or it seems like a lot of juice is needed. But for someone like me, I don't use my outboard that much. But if you're a troller, you need some serious battery power in your boat. Mine would sink. If I had 6 batteries in my boat.
Yeah, I think it's just the battery technology is just going to get lighter and lighter. I think there's going to be some significant breakthroughs with that.
Are they lithium?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's lithium. It's a lithium ion. It could be a polymer. It might be lithium polymer.
By the way, I had to purchase a clam product this week. I haven't got it yet, but I have one of those. Is it an Anger bait cooler? You know which one I'm talking about?
An Anger bait cooler?
What's it called? It's like the high end ones.
It's targeted to angry fishermen.
No, it's like a cooler. Engel? Is that what it is?
Engel. Yes. Yep. That's right.
And sorry, I don't get excited about bait cooler names.
Yeah, now what's so funny what Engel has done, it's what Yeti did. They're in the high end.
No, they doubled their
business.
price, like $150 for a little cooler.
Who knew that we need to have high end bait coolers?
Yeah. So the one thing I didn't like about my high-end bait cooler, the cooler itself works great, but the aerator kind of died over the weekend. Of course, when you need it, especially when your bait's going to freeze if it's not running. I always hated I couldn't plug it in when it was home, because if you have some bait, or especially if you're on vacation, and where I was, I couldn't get bait. So everything I had to have with me for 4 days. And then you have 2D batteries, so you need 8 batteries for every 36 hours But Clam, and there wasn't many of these, but Clam makes an aerator for those coolers that is rechargeable lithium, and you can plug it into the wall. So I ordered one of these against my better judgment. Maybe I'm too hard on Clam. I don't know. The one thing with Clam that got me is I bought. What's that?
What did you say? Maybe you're what?
I'm too hard on the clams. Do you remember the fan / light I bought for my clam ice house?
Yes.
I'm just going to take you down the history of why clam makes me angry. because my house seems pretty good. It ain't bad. We talked about the zippers being lame and the duffel bags, but the house itself was pretty good. So they made this fan that operated on, I think it was D batteries also, that would supposedly hang straight. There was a hook in the center of your house and it would hang down, and it had a little fan to sort of press and distribute heat. And then it had lights around the rings of it, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind fan. And you would turn on the fan and it didn't make any difference at all. It would just make a winding noise, really quiet winding noise. And if you put your hand about an inch away, you could maybe feel a breeze. And the light didn't put out any light. Like, made zero difference in total blackness.
Yeah.
So I started to get mad at Clam about that one. And then I also bought the insulated floor, which I just sold yesterday for the Ice Escape, which in concept is kind of a cool idea to have insulated floor in your house because they are big houses and they're tough to keep warm. And this one would slide around in the ice. They had connectors for it. You couldn't fold it up when it was frozen. It would just get covered. Anyway, so I sold it. So I've had a couple bad Clam experiences, but I'm hopeful of the Clam aerator. I like the idea of having a rechargeable aerator that I can use over and over again and plug in when I don't need it. And by the way, if anybody has an ion out there, I'm seeing more and more information that you just don't want to leave an ion auger. You don't want to leave those lithium batteries just fully charged. Have you ever heard this?
Oh boy, then I've got issues then.
Those batteries are expensive, and I'm seeing more and more that you, like in the off season, you don't just want to leave them on the charger.
Oh goodness. Then I'm gonna go and take this one I've got in this other room on a charger right now.
Maybe I'm wrong, but it's kind of like there's a certain type of lithium battery, and I've seen a couple.
I have heard that, dude.
It's different with that type of battery where you get so many cycles with a battery like that.
Right.
So you don't want to, if it goes down 10% and then you crank it up to 90% or 100% again, then that's a cycle that you burnt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can actually make those batteries fail just by keeping them charged. Now, I had mine on all summer. Didn't even think about it, and I realized this lately, and it worked fabulous when I had it out.
Okay, good.
But I'm just saying, those things are not cheap. They're like $150 for a battery, I think. So you might want to look into how you treat your lithiums.
Yeah.
Especially when they're high-enders like that. So.
For sure. So just moving right along here, we gonna wrap up here, I know, but I did want to touch on just a few last items here. Did you see anything, Pete, about the UFO stuff that's been happening here lately? Some interviews on Joe Rogan.
I've been in the woods.
Yeah, so I did. Yeah, so I did send you the link to a podcast. Yeah, I did. I sent you a link initially to a podcast that this Harvard astronomer did with a guy named Lex Friedman, but he then later also did a podcast with Joe Rogan.
Well, I think you sent me a link to the book that he has coming out.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I did that. Maybe that's what I did.
I didn't see the podcast. I'll have to look. I don't know if I
he's
caught
Joe
that.
Rogan. His name's Avi. I can't remember his last name, but so he was on Joe Rogan, and this is the top astronomer in Harvard that is now doing interviews telling people that this object that came into our solar system in 2017 was extraterrestrial. He says that's the most likely explanation. Right.
He's got an interesting take on it too.
And yeah. And so it's really, I think this decade there are going to be some amazing revelations there. Just the fact that this exciting too, that this Harvard astronomer is courageous enough to even put his neck out like that, and I think it's going to make people more open to studying this. And then Joe Rogan, he's a great voice in this area, I'll tell you, just for a lot of different reasons. But he also then had on this guy that had been abducted by aliens. They made a movie called Fire in the Sky about this abduction. And it's a fascinating story if you've never heard of it before. But this guy, his name's, I cannot remember his name. But it's one of the more recent Joe Rogan experiences he did. And this guy, he was with 7 other people. They were loggers in Arizona, went down a road They saw this object hovering. One of the guys ran towards it. This beam of light comes out, knocks him out. His friends leave, like they're all scared. They leave. They're like, we can't leave him. They come back. His friend is gone. The craft is gone. And they go back to town. They tell everybody in the town what happened. Nobody believes them. They start accusing him of the friends of murder. 5 days later, their buddy comes back to town.
Right.
And talks about this experience he had in that craft.
Yeah.
And every single one of them passed a polygraph.
Yeah. It's a good flick, too. I don't think there's any big names in that, but it was like a mid-90s movie or something.
Right. And the thing that's interesting about it, too, is that they're in the movie, they're like, there's violence that was put upon, like the aliens were violent to the guy, and that didn't happen. He said he was terrified of the experience, but they never harmed him. Just Hollywood took it to make, they were like, let's make a horror movie out of this thing,
right?
Which is so shady. But I wanted to kind of keep this to last, Pete, and obviously, we're trying to keep these podcasts to an hour.
Are we done with UFOs?
Yes.
Okay. I want everyone to please leave comments about what you think of Greg's UFO discussions. Leave lots of comments for us to observe. All right, go ahead.
And so, I think everybody's going to be very receptive.
I'm honestly curious of what people think about that subject. Yeah,
I'm a believer, personally.
Right.
I believe in it.
I wonder what people, I wonder what the overall sort of vibe on that is. I really do.
You think it's you? So you're concerned of the level of people don't give a damn to the maybe they do give a damn. You want to see where we're going with that.
I'm curious, if it makes people be like, where are we going with this? And then they just go on to the next video or podcast. Or if they're like, thank you. Like, no one ever brings that subject up.
I think one of the things that we have, and when I say we, I think I'm more guilty of this, that maybe we've cared too much.
Right.
Maybe we've overthought things. Maybe we just do what we want to do.
Yeah. Why not?
But yes, I'm sure we will have some people that I've seen it in the comments before that like, what? I thought you guys were going to talk about fishing. They ain't even talk about fishing. But then I know people that are fishermen that are like, I love it.
Right.
So
I like people that leave comments that were mad they didn't learn anything, and I'm like, well, sorry.
Yeah. What you're getting this for free, asshole.
Well, even so, it's like I don't have anything to teach you on a podcast. I can't imagine going to fish. Like, I'm going to go fishing today. First, I'll listen to a podcast so I can get my game tuned up. Yeah,
it's like, you know what? You're a grown-ass adult, dude. It's like you're putting a comment like that on. Well, go to another video. You got to leave a comment. It's just like farting before you leave the room,
Right. Crop dusting. Although if we didn't have those comments, we wouldn't have had like a good 15-minute segment here to start the show. So,
well, do you want to talk about your winter wilderness adventure?
I can. There's so much to cover on this adventure, but I can summarize it. I took the whole. I always have big visions of getting a lot of fishing in. Especially when I'm going to the Northwoods, and I went all the way to the end of the Gunflint. Cook County, where the road ends. Ontario was across the lake, halfway across the lake, and my determination was to catch a lake trout. So day one, I get there. Lake trout is not open unless you hike into the boundary waters, right? And hiking into the boundary waters is no small task with a sled full of ice gear. So day one, I hiked into the boundary waters. It was probably a mile and a half. There was hardly any snow up there, 12 inches maybe, but all the trails were worn down with sleds because the campgrounds are full. People are out there camping, with some without tents. I saw a group of girls, teenage girls, they're just sleeping in their bags, sleeping in the boundary waters and loving it. Yeah, it was in the 30s up there, even some freezing rain. So day one, I get stuffed. I'm just sitting outside in the boundary waters, but it's awesome. It's just beautiful up there. Day two, we get a guide and we get into a couple of lake trout. I was filming the whole time, but I have a bunch of weird, There's just not a lot of action. It's more of a family trip than it is a fishing trip.
Now this is I got over your video. It's a lake trout in your hand.
My hand? Oh, you know what that is? That's a splake.
Oh, no kidding.
So I actually targeted splake. Part of the problem I had is the lakes that I normally fish up there, you can't get to because the roads aren't plowed. So you have to literally go to the county websites and figure out which roads they plow and then decide what lakes you're going to fish based off of the roads you plowed or they plowed. So I literally followed a logging truck down a road one day. I got to a point on one of my favorite logging roads that goes to one of my favorite lakes where the plow just quit, and it was a single lane, and at 5:30 in the morning I had to back up for 2 miles in the dark. No
really?
kidding. Took me 30 plus minutes.
Holy.
In reverse in the dark in the woods. And if you go off the road, there's no cell service, you're just out there. There's nobody out there to help.
Oh my.
And it's 1 degrees, So I figured out one of the lakes that was on that route was a splake and rainbow trout managed lake. And a splake gets its name because it's half laker. It's a female laker and a male brook trout. So, and they're both char, which I always forget. There's really no native trout in Minnesota. They're char.
Right.
A speckled trout and a laker gets its name as a splake. That's where they merge those two words together. And they have the characteristics of both fish. So that fish you're looking at, they call lake trouts would get huge fork tails because they have a huge fork tail on them,
Makes
Whereas
sense.
a brookie has a perfectly square tail. And if you see the picture of that fish, and that was just a little one, but I was happy to catch one. It has the fork tail like a lake trout, but it has all the properties of a brook trout in its fin. And every one you catch is a little bit different. You can get like 4 or 5 varieties of this. And they act like both fish, which is weird because brook trout are normally a little bit shallower, really aggressive, easier to find, where lake trout are usually in the deeper holes in the middle of the day. They'll come up shallow in the morning and night, but just for a little bit. So it's this weird combination of fish that both do opposite things,
Huh.
But that particular splake, this is how stupid I am. So I took my little girl out, and I'm like, hey, I was trying to keep her interested, so I brought hot chocolate and snacks. I'm filming the whole time. It's pretty funny. She's bored the whole time, but she's eating, So I'm like, well, if you catch this rainbow trout, I'll buy you this stuffed animal, this moose that was a rainbow colored moose in the gift shop.
Okay.
So we're out there for, 3 or 4 hours, and we were out the day before with a guide. That's the only reason I call it lake trout. I had a great guide. He had set up multiple tip-ups because the whole family was out there, and we were each fishing with lines, and we got some lakers. So I'm applying my lake trout knowledge to the splake trout knowledge, essentially. So I go out there. I've got me and Phoebe, so we're fishing with 2 lines, and I got tip-ups out there. We catch the splake. And as she pulls the splake out of the hole, she's just thrilled. Somebody taps on the door, and I open the door, and it's the DNR, right?
Oh, no.
And we're up there in the middle of nowhere.
Oh my!
He's got a clipboard, and I recognize the guy because he's helped me before in the winter or in the summertime finding stream trout. They're amazing up there, really helpful guys. And he's like, "Hey, I noticed you got these tip-ups out here. Did you know that this lake you're only allowed 1 line?"
Oh, wow.
So we've got 4 lines in.
Oh, no.
2. And, I've just got night crawlers and treble hooks, and I'm not keeping anything. But
Right.
the timing of it was so perfect, like she literally had pulled in us. We hadn't had anything happen in 3 hours. And the guy, thanks to the DNR for this, he was like, I'm not out here enforcing. I'm just taking a survey, but I want you to know you can't, be fishing like this.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm sure that probably happens a lot. Like people that just, coming up there for the first time and.
Yeah. And there's no signage
Right.
on the lake. I think there was at a landing, but I just pulled in through the woods. I didn't even know where the landing was,
Right.
So I didn't see anything about special regulations. I, was catch and release fishing. And the other thing is there's no minnows out there. So if you're ever fishing these types of lakes, heads up, everybody, 1 line. You can use crawlers, but they're terrified of a perch or walleye sneaking in there because it would devastate the trout population.
Right.
So shout out to DNR guy for just saying, hey, no worries, and just pull those lines up and, have yourself a good day. So.
I'm putting the shot up of what looks like a frozen lake and a sunset.
Yeah, I think that was the Splake Lake.
Yeah. That's
so
gorgeous.
It's so beautiful up there. Like the silence is deafening, but it was cool to see how many people are out lake trout fishing. The first day I was there, you could only fish boundary waters. Day 2, you could fish anywhere there's a lake trout lake. Season opens up. So it's weird. You talk to people, some guys are like, you got to fish 90 feet, and then some guys are like, you got to fish 10 feet. And then some guys are like, you got to fish 40 feet. Like I talked to everybody up there and everybody's got their own way of lake trout fishing. And these fish hit every depth over the course of a day. And you're just out there banging big spoons and looking for them on your fish finders. And you got some minnows on the spoons, or you spray them down with some scent. And it's a fun way to fish. These fish come in like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and they come in packs of 3 or 4, and you'll just get a bang, bang, bang. We didn't get anything huge. Like 24 inches was probably our biggest one, but I highly recommend. I'll be doing that again for sure. And we should go up there. Yeah. We should go up there and lake trout fish sometime.
Oh, I'd love to.
It's just like through the ice. It's a fun thing to do. My guide had one of those Garmin's too, where you get to watch things in real time. What do they call that technology?
Panoptics.
Oh my God. I can't imagine. You could see the fish just swim into the picture. He would swim through the screen. He would come back again.
It's incredible.
And you could tell when there was a hit coming.
Yeah.
You're watching your lure just move up and down. We got 3 lures on this thing. And
it's painting a picture, like a live picture. But you also, like, part of your trip was sled dogs. I've got a video or a picture up now of that. So you took the sled dogs into some lakes?
Well, actually, I ended up just doing it for fun. It was one of those things where I was hoping to make a trip of it, and we ended up just bringing in the family and having some dog sledding fun up there. But, I mean, on this trip, we downhill skied, we cross-country skied, we swam inside, we swam outside when it was 0 degrees. We played hockey, we ice fished, we snowmobiled, and we dog sled, So it hurt me not to get a lot of fishing in. But one other interesting day of fishing I had out there, most of my fishing days there, I'll get, 2 or 3 fish and be happy about it. I have my little fish tracks with me. I was talking about that on our last podcast a couple weeks ago. Because I went really small. I was really happy with my Eskimo, my small sled, everything. I went super small because I knew I'd be hauling a long ways. Worked fabulous. Like, I'm excited to go fishing pulling a sled now.
Nice.
The Eskimo fits like a backpack.
Okay.
And then I can hook the sled rope to the Eskimo on my back. Just throw the rope over it, and I can pull the whole setup. It's just great. It's light and easy. But this Fish Tracks has this little transducer on it, and it wasn't always working as good as I hoped it would have. For some reason, it loses its images from time to time, and you keep having to adjust the settings. So it's not perfect, but it might be a user error. But at one point, the float that holds the transducer kept going down, and I'm just sitting in the ice house. I got all this on camera, and I'm like, what is going on, So I go over and look into the fishing hole, and there's a big pike with the whole transducer in his mouth, just sitting there. It was like 3 inches under the ice. And I'm like, what is going on right now, And you can see the cords coming up over his nose. He doesn't care. His back's almost against the ice. He's just holding on to it. He's not floating away with it. He's just like, and it's big. It's like the size of a golf ball, maybe bigger, a little bit bigger.
No kidding.
So I take my jig, I bring it up because it's below him, and run it by him. And I see he kind of looks at it, but he doesn't let go of the transducer. So I start bouncing the jig head right on the crown of his skull, just bang, bang, bang. And you can tell he's getting annoyed, but he's like, I'm not letting go. And then eventually he spits out the transducer and he just backs up, So then I'm just jigging right in front of his nose, and he comes over and he snaps the minnow off and misses the hook. I set the hook and miss him. I'm like, you got to be kidding. So he stays right there, just like an animal at the zoo, waiting for another bite. So I open up my cooler, I get out a minnow, I put another minnow on, drop it back down there, the same thing. And then I've got it on camera. I'm holding my phone over the ice hole where he just inhales the whole thing. And
really?
Yeah, I set the hook on him, landed him. He wasn't like huge, but he was like this fat, 25-inch northern. I was catching all small fish, so it was just like it woke me up. But what's a northern thinking when he eats a transducer? Like, what turns him on?
Those e-socks, like muskies do crazy things, dude. I had a muskie one time. I told this story before, just like looking right at my transducer or right at my trolling motor head.
Right.
in the water, like just looking right at it. Like
I'm going to take a bite.
Yeah.
My grandpa always used to say, if you run out of lures, just throw an empty beer can out there. You can still catch northerns.
Right.
But he ain't kidding.
Yeah.
You could probably catch a northern with an empty beer can if you needed to.
How deep of water were you in when that happened?
I was in like 15 to 20 feet. It's weird, in the boundary waters, there's islands everywhere.
Right.
So there's always these perfect reefs coming off these island points. So I was only 15 feet from shore, but I was in like 25 feet of water. But I cut holes at 10 and at 30. That's the beautiful part about that ion. And there's not a lot of snow and there wasn't a lot of ice. So I was being mobile. I even had a fire built on shore, So you get cold, you go stand by the fire. And I was still holding my pole. I could let my line out and walk to shore and sit by the fire while I was fishing with my rod. It was kind of a fabulous experience,
It's awesome.
Yeah, but I couldn't mark walleyes. But I was fishing lakes I'd never fished before. I fished 5 lakes. I'd never been on any of them.
Yeah.
So you're going in blind and
Sure.
you're just kind of hoping for the best. And every day I found fish, but it was kind of sporadic. And they say for lake trout love bitter cold, blue skies, lots of sun. Those really cold, high pressure days. That's lake trout weather.
Interesting.
And the whole time I was there, it was foggy and gray and freezing rain and kind of the opposite of a lake trout day.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it was a spectacular thing. Sometime we should go up there for fun. It is.
I agree, man. I've been thinking more about that. Like, it's time to,
Most of these lakes are by. But most of the lakes are by the road and don't have public accesses.
Yeah.
They're just canoe only lakes, So they don't get any of the pressure, but you can just rent a canoe and drop it out there and, fish like you'd fish. They're not very big. Wind isn't an issue because they're in the woods, and it's one of the best parts of Minnesota. It really is.
I believe it. No, it's gorgeous up there. Well, sounds like you had a great time, and yeah, I definitely want to get up there and try that as soon as possible.
The video will be coming, but it's going to be more of a comedy routine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, that's cool. Yeah, I look forward to seeing it. So before we go here, Pete, we have a patron. We have our first patron, Pete.
I'm retiring.
So, which is very cool. We set up a Patreon account. So if you want, the very best way to support Angling Uploaded is to become a patron. The first place that we actually are putting content up is on the Patreon account. So go to patreon.com and just search Angling Uploaded. And then I put content, up like the podcast, Pete, that it goes up there first. Like it's
Right.
So if you're a patron, you'll see content there before it goes anywhere else. We want to do like exclusive live streams. You'll have better interaction with Pete and I. We're going to do giveaways. So, and just if you enjoy what we're doing here, you enjoy our content. We need your support. And there isn't any strict structured pricing. Just give what you can afford for the value you think that we're bringing to you. And also you get a shout out. We're giving shout outs if you're a patron. So this is exciting, Pete. Derek Place, he will forever be known as our first patron. Derek Place, and he's from Mankato, Minnesota. Wrote a real nice message to us.
Mankato, yeah?
Yeah, from Mankato. Yeah.
Right.
So he said he became hooked on our videos ever since seeing the Lake Jefferson St. Olaf Lake video. Which
Mankato area.
Yeah, so he says nearly everyone can relate to the real stuff that happens and the real people we meet as a result of angling. So he gets what we're doing here, and we appreciate that he's a patron of
Derek
ours.
He doesn't get mad if he doesn't learn anything.
That's right. Yeah.
He's a perfect customer.
Be like Derek. So thank you, Derek. And go to patreon.com and become, and then Angling Uploaded. Just search Angling Uploaded, become a patron. We'll shout you out. Thanks for your support, guys. Pete, do you want to wrap this up?
I could have kept going, but we've went too long. My God. As usual.
I know. It just flies by. So I've enjoyed it, buddy.
All right, me too. It's almost noon, so let's start drinking.